Hey guys, I changed. So actually, last video I forgot to tell you guys that two things have changed. I now collect plushies. If y'all are interested, I can show off my collection of all 3 plushies. Crazy. I essentially, some people go someplace and they bring back a magnet or something. I go someplace and I buy a plushie. Never mind. The other thing is I am now a Eurovision Psycho fan. So if I actually do end up posting stuff on this channel again, lead up to Eurovision, especially like May and stuff, y'all are gonna be fed. Unless you hate Eurovision, then I apologize. Another thing is, although this isn't that much of an update, but I am also a Soul Psycho fan now. Have been for quite a while. But this isn't that much of a change because I've always been to horror movies. Like, it's always been a thing. I started watching horror movies when I was 10. It's just a lifelong hobby, you know? But with slashers, I went through like phases. So first I was really into Nightmare on Elm Street, and that was like my biggest thing. Then it changed into Chucky, and Chucky was my like horror fixation for years. And like 3 years ago, I guess, it just turned into Saw. Now Saw is my horror fixation. You say no, Saw is into slasher. Shh. But yeah, that's it, I'm done. So I used to do this thing, for those of you who watched me, where at the end of every year I would kind of like recap the year in my books and give you, my favorite top 5-6 books of the last year that I read. So since I still actually read books, crazy, I decided that that's nice, I should do that. But the kind of issue is here that last year, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys, last year hasn't been the best. Yes, good things happened. I bought an apartment. But wasn't the best mental state I've ever been in. Let's just put it that way. And I'm saying this to kind of say I had very little motivation to read books, very little energy to read books. I like my job, but a PhD is exhausting on every aspect of your life. Being a biologist is a very difficult job. There's a lot of things you have to do that it's just very difficult, and it can be a little bit draining, which isn't to say I don't like it. I do like it. So anyone going like, oh, just ditch it then do something else? No, I want to do this. Okay, this, if I actually get back into it, is a hobby. That is the thing I actually do for money and actually plan on doing for the rest of my life. This is something I'm kind of doing this more to have a connection with you guys. Like, I liked it. It was nice, you know. But yeah, it wasn't the best year for me. Let's just put it that way. And so I just ended up binge watching a fuck ton of horror movies. The good side of it is that I actually watched a lot of new horror movies. Like, I never do that. I just watched the old ones. And I actually watched a lot of movies that came out last year, and they were good. So if any of y'all want like a top 10 favorite movies of last year or whatever, I don't know, or just reviews of the best horror movies I've seen last year, or reviews of horror movies I've seen last year, anything, let me know. Horror movies is like my fixation. I'm not on the spectrum. People not on the spectrum can also have fixation. Horror movies are mine. So, okay, never mind. I'm going off topic. I always do this. I always ramble. I don't know. I don't know what's up with me. Yeah, so going back. Hasn't been the best year. I always chose watching a horror movie over reading an actual book, and because of that I've only read 33, Jesus Christ. I've only read 33 books and 2 that actually made an impression on me. So I'm going to quickly go over those 2 because unfortunately I'm afraid most of you won't be interested in them, or at least in one of them. And I'll start from that one to get it out of the way. And I'll just do a recap of my top 5 books from 2 years ago, so 2023, because I actually read 5 really, really good books that I want to recommend to you guys, some of which you might have already read. So let's get into it, shall we? So starting off with the book that y'all are not going to be happy about, probably, because I'm assuming, I know my statistics, the majority of people who watch me are from the States. So I know y'all are not going to be happy, but this is not in English, obviously. But essentially, it's, you might see from this, it's To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes, I know, you'll have to read it in school, and you'll probably hate it, and you'll probably also hate it for political reasons or whatever, because this is, as far as I'm aware, very deeply intertwined with you guys' politics. I don't care about it. your politics. I'm sorry. I am not interested in American politics. I apologize. My interests and my skills lie in other areas of the world. I don't know much about politics, and so I will not be voicing opinions about politics because I don't like to voice opinions about things I do not know anything about. So if anyone wants to enlighten me, feel free to do so, but I'm not gonna cover that at all because I just don't know, and I'm not gonna speak on things I don't know about, you know? I feel like it's just the sensible thing to do. I love this book. Now, to be clear, I have started a book club actually at my job. Yeah, so with this big biological institute, and I run a book club every month, and this was one of the books we read for our book club. And we have a lot of international students. We have, someone from England. We have a lot of people from India, different countries. And so something that came forward really quickly is that people who read it in the original language, which is English, hated the book, and people who, like me, read it, the translation in our language here, loved it. Because it turns out the translation is really good. So another thing before anyone comes for me, yeah, maybe the original sucks. I don't know. I haven't read it. I've only read the translation. The translation's good. So the reason why the translation apparently is really, really good and the original I heard sucks, as in that's an opinion that was voiced, is that it's supposed to be written from the perspective of like an 8-year-old child, if I remember correctly. I read this quite literally a year ago. I think I read it in like March or something. I don't remember. And apparently the English version, the 8-year-old doesn't sound like an 8-year-old. Like, she sounds like a fully grown adult, and there's a lot of slang and difficult words. That's what I heard. I haven't read it. That's what my book club says. In the Polish... I just doxed myself. Okay, in the Polish version, never mind. In the Polish version, the 8-year-old actually sounds like an 8-year-old. Like, this is written in a way that a Polish 8-year-old would talk like. Maybe even younger. Like, you're reading this and you're actually getting the vibes that this is a child. This is written from the perspective of a child, So I think that changes everything. And if the original actually is written in a way that it feels like it's an adult speaking, not a child, I understand how this from a perspective of an adult could be very difficult to read. But when it's translated in a way that it feels like a child saying these stuff, this was a really good book. It was a very enlightening book. I learned a lot from it, but to me, what this book really did, and what I really appreciated, is that it showed a positive father figure. Because, and this is just my opinion, y'all don't have to agree with me, don't come for me, but I feel like in the media, fathers are very rarely portrayed positively. And before everyone comes at me, oh, but Vicky, father figures don't exist, I don't know, most fathers are not that nice, blah, blah, blah. I know it happens a lot. I've got my own experiences. I've got friends with their own experiences. But I also have friends who have good fathers. We're like close to 30, all of us, my guys. And I have friends who, being 30 or over 30, are still happy with their dads, and the dads were good to them, like good father figures exist is my point. And I shouldn't be saying this stuff, like this should be obvious, but I feel like to some people it's not, so I'm just going to say this, that there are decent fathers out there, and there are decent father figures out there, and just as a lot of media portrays the bad father figures out there, which is perfectly valid by the way, I feel like sometimes it would be nice to see a good father figure. For me, I never had a good relationship with my dad. I'm not going to go into it, but unfortunately we didn't get along, and now that I want to get along with him, it's too late because he's not alive anymore. I really enjoyed reading this because to me, someone that never really had much of a father figure in their life, it's very nice to read about a good father. Like, I like that. As someone who didn't have that, I enjoy this. It made me feel all nice and cozy in here, like all nice and warm and fuzzy and very pleasant. It was a nice experience to me, okay? So, yeah. Those are the two reasons I like this book. Going forward, because I know most of you probably are not happy with it because you all had to read it in school and other reasons, but never mind, going next. One of the best books I have ever read in my life. And one of the best books you will ever read in your life. Do this to yourself. Just read it. Don't judge. I know what you're going to say. I know what y'all are going to think, but just shush and give this a try. Pride and Prejudice. It is going to change your life. I have yet to meet a single person that does not think this is a masterpiece. Now, don't go off of the movies or the TV series or whatever. read the goddamn book. God damn it. Okay, just read the book. My boyfriend is currently reading it, and he's in love with it. He just laughs out loud, and like he's also a close to 30-year-old dude. Okay, we're the same age. And he's in love with this. He thinks it's amazing. So it's not just women literature. A guy is into it. I shall read you the first sentence because I feel like it is the most iconic thing ever written in the history of humankind, and you cannot change my mind on that topic. So I shall read you the first sentence of Pride and Prejudice in the hopes that it will change your life. And if you ever take a single thing out of any of my videos, any of the bullshit that I say, because I say a lot of bullshit. I mostly talk bullshit. Let it be that Pride and Prejudice is the book that's going to change your life, and you should read it. Here we go. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Thank you. Please read this book. It is so good. Like, I'm not even gonna say anything. It is the perfect book. Now, I have 4 books in my life that changed my life, that are the best things in the world. The Terror is one of them. I have a separate video on it. Pride and Prejudice is the second one. 6-4, which I don't know if I talked about on this channel, it's a Japanese book. 6-4 is the third one, and the fourth one is one I'm also going to talk about this. So I have read a lot of books in my life. A lot. I own close to 800 books. I haven't read all of them, but I've probably read, I'd say, I don't know how many, but I've definitely read at least a couple hundred books in my life. And this is not only in the top 4 best books I've ever read in my life, I would say that this is number 1 in the 4 best books. Like, I know how I said The Terror was the best book that I've ever read, but this year I read Pride and Prejudice, and Terror is actually number 3 or 4 now, probably. But it's still in the top 4. It's still a really good book. So this is first, and the other one I'll be talking about is probably second, and 6-4 or Terror, they are more or less similar position. Please do this to yourself. I know you've probably heard a fuck ton of things about Pride and Prejudice. It doesn't matter. Read this. It's gonna make your happy place happy. You know? You're depressed? Pride and Prejudice. You're psychotic? Pride and Prejudice. Stress, life is overwhelming, everything fucking sucks? Pride and Prejudice. Like I said, this was not a mentally very good year for me. I had a lot of very difficult times. I'm not gonna go into detail, because it's nobody's business. But it was hard. And this book helped me so fucking much. It took me out of a very, very deep, dark place. And I will be forever grateful. I'm not gonna say anything more than that. I'm just gonna praise this book, so I have to put it aside, because if I don't, I'm never gonna fucking shut up. It's the best piece of fucking literature I've ever read in my life. And it's so cozy, and wholesome, and positive, and beautiful. It will make you cry from happiness. You will feel like you're being hugged by 1,000 little puppies, or kittens, or whatever you prefer. And you're surrounded by plushies, and butterflies, unless you're scared of them, and meadows, and sunshine, and sugar. And life is good. It's good. Right now, in this moment, this short few minutes you're reading this book. Life is good, and everything in the world is okay. Read this book. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now to the 5 best. So that's the only 2 books I read this year that actually had any effect on me. The other 31, some of them were okay, some of them fucking sucked. It wasn't a very good year. I'm not gonna go into it. Moving on. Top 5 books from 2023, because I can actually give you some decent recommendations, although Pride and Prejudice, but okay, never mind. So we shall start off with a book some of you might have heard about, because I think it might have won the Goodreads Award. I'm not sure. Maybe. But it's also been quite loud, as in, there's been quite a few people talking about this. Firekeeper's Daughter. So I read the translation, but this is the same, as in, the cover's the same. This is a book about an Ojibwe girl. I mean, she's half Ojibwe, half, I don't know, white American. I don't know how to put it. She's a teenage Ojibwe girl, and so for those of you that don't know, it's because you're not an American something, Ojibwe are one of the tribes, is that how we put them? One of the Native American people. I don't know how to put this to be politically correct, but it's one of the original settlers, one of the original people that owned the lands, like one of those, one of Native Americans, not those, mate. God damn it, I'm not good with words. If you watch this channel even once, you know I'm not good with words. I am extremely terrible with words. It doesn't matter. This was written by Native American as well, as far as I'm aware. Angeline Bolle. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, I'm really sorry. It's also Ojibwe herself. Yes, she is Ojibwe. And it tells the story of how this teenage girl is kind of forced into helping the FBI, convinced, kind of against her own will. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to go too much into detail on what this book is about. It's a difficult book to read. I'm not going to lie to you all. It's difficult because it talks a lot about the injustices and difficulties of life as a Native American. Even if you're just half Native American, just, you know, if you have any Native American blood in you, it talks about the difficulties of living with that in America and how Native Americans are treated in the United States. It talks about FBI crime stuff, but it also talks about daily life and how the daily life can be difficult. Trigger warning, there is an SA scene in this. I didn't read it because stuff like that triggers me and I refuse to read it. But even apart from that, this is a really difficult book to read. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you all, this is difficult. So read this and then read Pride and Prejudice to feel happier. But it's worth it. It is very well written. It tells a very good story. It conveys the message of the difficulties that Native American people have to face in a very good way. I don't really have anything bad to say about the book. If it were up to me, I wouldn't put an essay scene in there. I understand why the author did it. Native American girls unfortunately go statistically through a lot of essay. It happens a lot and oftentimes it is overlooked by police and FBI and other people like that. There's a lot of injustices done to them. So I 100% understand why the author did it, and this is just my own opinion, but I believe essays shouldn't be included in anything. Books, art, movies. Like, if it were up to me, if I were a tyrant, I would delegalize putting anything essay related into literally anything. That is my own opinion. Y'all don't have to agree. So if I were to change a single thing about this book, it would solely be that because it's something that triggers me and I don't want to read it. But other than that, this is a really well written book and I highly recommend it. A second part came out. I own it, haven't had the time to read it yet, hopefully this year. But I have literally like 70 books that I got as presents last year, and there's a lot of stuff to read. It's gotten to a point where I have this envelope with all the books inside, and I just kind of, every time I'm done with a book, I pick one out, because I have way too many books to choose myself. Anyway, really good book, highly recommend it. The next book, to go a little bit more gently, so cute. It's not, you know, Pride and Prejudice, but this is also such a feel-good, wholesome book. This is Nevermore, the story of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I think she's an Australian author. Might be wrong. Let me check. I should read this stuff. Yeah, I think it's just written that she lives in Australia, so maybe she's not Australian. But she lives in Australia, so I'm just going to assume she is Australian. It's a different world from ours. It's a book for children. I think it's called middle grade in English. Where I live, we don't have those kind of like definitions. It's a book for children, teenagers, adults. Is that? This is for kids, I would say probably like, I don't know, 12, 13, but the young kids like 10 could probably also read this, maybe even 8, I don't know. But it's also a lot of fun for adults. I gave this book to my mum as well, she also loved it. There are 3 books currently in the series, the 4th is coming out in April. I read all 3, and something I have to really commend the author on is that every single one of the books is just as good as the previous one. They don't get worse. They might even get better, I'm not quite sure because I have had quite a big break between each book. Really good. So it's about a girl called Morrigan Crow who's supposed to die on her 11th birthday, but she doesn't. Instead, she's whisked away to this magical land. I'm kind of over-exaggerating here, where it turns out that she can partake in these kind of trials to get into this very unique society, and it's nothing weird. It's very cute, very wholesome. The characters are very likable. The story's very interesting. The plot twist, I mean, probably most of y'all will see the plot twist coming, but I didn't. It was nice. It was good. It was fun. So just, if you want a nice, cozy, wholesome read, because you feel like shit, but you want to stop feeling like shit, but you also want a book that isn't just feel good, but actually has a sensible plot with a decent character development. So a good book that is feel good at the same time. Because listen, I read a lot of books that aren't good just to feel good, okay? Like, I read Joanna Fluke, the Hannah Swenson series. After 13 fucking books, okay, they're all the same. But if they make my happy place happy. This isn't like that. This not only makes my happy place happy, this is actually a good book series, so I highly recommend this. So I will leave the best for last. So I need my phone. 2 of the books that I want to recommend to you guys I do not currently have because I lent them to my friends and they're reading them now. But I have to remind myself which books they are because I don't remember. Oh, okay. A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. A Head Full of So I really like Paul Tremblay. He's a fairly famous in these days author of horror. And the reason I like him, if you read anything of his, is that each book is written in a way where you cannot... It's left up to the reader whether what happens is supernatural or not, which I really appreciate. A Head Full of Ghosts is about a girl that is diagnosed with schizophrenia. If you read the book, it's up to you to decide whether the things that are happening are real or if it's just a schizophrenia. It's entirely up to you to decide on that. I will not tell you what I decided the book is about for me because you should just experience it. The reason I like this book is not only because Paul Tremblay is a genius author and... okay, maybe I should say what the book is about. The book is about told from the story of her youngest sister. So the girl with schizophrenia is 14, her sister's like 8 or 10, I don't remember. She's still a kid. And their father is extremely devout Catholic. The schizophrenic sister, therapist and doctors aren't helping her very much. So the father decides that she's possessed by the devil. And not only do they do exorcisms on her, but also they fucking do a TV show. You know, I have a daughter who's in a lot of pain and is sad and stuff. Let's put her on TV. Reality TV is just a great idea. So that's the general premise of the book. And the reason why I like this book is not the premise itself, and not just the writing, because it's a really good book. But without going into too much detail, I have a family member who's schizophrenic, so I've kind of lived with schizophrenia my entire life, as in I know what it looks like firsthand very well. And I have never in my life read a book that presented schizophrenia in such a realistic way. Now, granted, this is solely based off of my own life experiences, right? So maybe if you know someone's schizophrenia, maybe you'll read this book and be like, this is nowhere near to the truth, this isn't what it looks like. Fair, every mental disorder is different, every person with a mental disorder is different, they go through things differently. Actually, no, I have more than one person in my life that has schizophrenia and they go through things a little bit differently, although there's a lot of similarities. So like, I get that. Just because I see the similarities doesn't mean you will. But also from like the medical knowledge I have, I am a psychologist and a biologist, and I do study psychosis just a little bit, just a teeny tiny bit. I have never read a book or watched a movie that talks about schizophrenia that would portray it in such a realistic way. And I mean realistic, it shows both the upsides and the downsides. Okay, there aren't any upsides really. There's no upsides to schizophrenia. My point is that, I phrased it wrong. It doesn't show the person as someone bad. It shows them obviously as a victim of what they have, but it also shows certain bad things that someone suffering from this disorder could potentially do if they suffer from this disorder, without making them a bad person. I don't know how to explain it. You have to read the book. My point is that the reason I like this book is I feel like mental disorders sometimes, especially schizophrenia, are extremely sensationalized and portrayed in an extremely unrealistic and terrible way. I don't appreciate that at all. So reading this book and seeing so many similarities with my own life, I really appreciated it. And I also personally, once again, I read a translation. I didn't read the original, so if someone reads the original and, you interpret it differently, then, please keep in mind that there could be a language shift. I haven't read it in English. But to me, like I said, it's just very realistic. It doesn't portray the sister as a bad person, doesn't portray her as evil. It doesn't portray her as any of the things that people with schizophrenia are often portrayed with, and so, in movies. So that's a book I also highly recommend. The other book that I do not own, because it's currently lent to the same person, actually, both books are lent to the same person, is Battle Royale, which is the first Battle Royale type piece of media out there, which is where Battle Royale generally takes its title from this book. It's a Japanese novel about a world where Japan didn't entirely lose World War II, and it's kind of a FASCIST country. And every year, students from the 3rd grade from certain high schools, I think, I don't remember exactly now, are forced to battle to the death until there's one of them left. So, I'm not going to say much more than that. What I really appreciate about this book is I genuinely just love Japanese literature because it's written in an extremely calm way, in a way that I've never read a Western book that's written in a way like that. It's beautiful. And the second reason is that, now this can be heart-wrenching to you, but it's also an upside in my opinion, because it is a horror book at the end of the day. You get to spend time with literally all 42 students from the class, so the majority of them die. It shouldn't be a spoiler. That's what the book is about. And you get to spend time with every single character before they die. It's heart-wrenching, and it's difficult, but it's kind of what makes the book good as well. Moving on. The second book in my top 4 favorite books ever read in my life. Once again, this is a translation, I apologize. Elementals by Michael McDowell. This is Southern Gothic, about 2 families from Alabama who, after the matriarch of one of those families dies, the families decide to go on vacation together to their family home. And there's something, I don't want to say ghost, I'm not going to say what it is. There's something not right with those homes. There's someone or something there. The premise sounds like literally fucking every horror movie ever. I know. But this is more original. It's written in such a beautiful way. I'm a sucker for for Gothic novels. And once again, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give too much away. But the way it's written, it's beautiful. It's emotional. It's beautiful. I don't know what to say about this book, quite frankly. It's not a book to read. It's an experience to experience. Is the best way I can put it. It's a really, really good book. Is all I can say. Well, that was very anticlimactic because I hyped it up so much and now I don't actually have anything to say about it. But it's just the way it's written. So it's hard for me to describe the way it's written. It's just the way it's written that's really, really good. So, yeah. So those are my top 2 books of last year. And top 5 books of 2023. And, yeah. That's it from me. Maybe I will see you around. I don't know. Let me know. I love you guys. Bye-bye.